Welcome to Inside the Real Job with me, your host, Yenfu Chen. Get ready to explore the world of diverse careers while fascinating stories await. We'll delve into the pros and cons while witnessing ever-evolving industries. Join me as we connect with individuals from all walks of life, unveiling their secrets and navigating the dynamic world of work. Let's embark on this journey into the realm of real jobs. So Brett, before recording, we're talking about how we got into the occupation that we're in, and you said you sort of fell into becoming an electrician.
Yes.
Talk us through that. How did you become one?
So my father was an electrician, not in the time like before I was born. He was an electrician. He was a manager of a company that built machines that made car batteries. So that was quite a big company. There was probably 20 or 30 people that worked for them. And then in school holidays, I was able to come in and sweep the floor, make a bit of money on the side, and I always had a bit of an interest in all things electrical or fiddling with things, like trying to make things work. And my father introduced me to the electrician there, and he sort of took me under his wing. He could see that I was interested and that I had a sort of a passion for figuring things out. So he was an extremely clever electrician, and I was very, very lucky to get him, and that's how it sort of worked out. I just started working with him, doing bits and pieces, and eventually I think he might have spoken to my dad and said, I think we could have something here. And he was working on his own and obviously needed a hand, so I started working with him, and next thing you know, I'm an apprentice, and I was on the path to becoming an electrician, which, looking back, I'm extremely grateful for, because I'm not sure which way I would have gone. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I couldn't be happier. I think electrician is a fantastic trade. Probably one of the cleanest trades too.
Or versus someone like a plumber.
A plumber, yeah. So there's always a bit of banter on the job sites between the plumber and the electrician. Look, I'd encourage any kids to do it. I mean, I think it's a really, really good trade to do. And it's quite rewarding as well.
And when you became apprentice, did you finish school first, or did you...
I finished in year 12 and didn't really have a path. And that's when my dad offered me this position, if you want. Yeah, I'm glad that I did, because once I started doing TAFE, I realised that doing my apprenticeship, there was learning to do. There's a bit of maths doing your apprenticeship.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, so doesn't mean you have to be brilliant at maths, but the theory side of things in your apprenticeship, maths is a bit of a big one for being an electrician. So if you're strong at maths, that's a good thing, and if you're not, you might just have to study a bit harder.
Is that because you're trying to work out volts and frequencies?
So, exactly. All those sorts of things. Like everyone will hear volts, amps, current, watts. No one really knows what any of those things mean. There's little formulas and stuff that you'll use day to day, which is now just in your head and you can't help but know it. But like with anything, you'll do a lot more advanced stuff than that you probably won't use much when you become an electrician, but you've still got to learn it. And I'm glad that I'd done all right in high school to sort of help me through that. And definitely finishing year 12 is a bonus.
Good one. Good call out. I like that one. Did you do the apprenticeship through the one place?
Yeah, so a bit different, because the company that I worked for, they made machines that made car batteries. It was an apprenticeship, but I did a bit of a different course. And then when that company sort of moved overseas, I was offered a job overseas, but I didn't want to take it. And then I moved into being a domestic electrician. So then I had to do some make-up courses to bridge the gap between the course that my apprenticeship was done, the years, but I'd never actually worked for an electrician on site. So I had to do a bit of time with him and some bridging courses to get my actual license, because the company that I worked for originally, you didn't need an electrical license. You were sort of just a cabler.
Okay.
So that's what I did after that. And then that's when I started working on people's houses, which is completely different to what I did at this other company. We were working on automatic assembly line machines and just in a factory in the same place every day. It was still a very, very good job, but very different to what I do now.
And do you feel like, is the 4 years, does it go quick if you're, I guess, passionate about it?
Yeah, I think you're learning so much that it can't not go quick. I mean, if you find that it's boring and it's not for you, then maybe look elsewhere. But I've found all of it's gone quite quick, because there is just so many different facets to it.
Yeah. And how long were you an electrician for in terms of working at houses? Because now you mentioned you're managing people and managing the more business side of things.
Yeah, so I started doing that job. That was in 93. And I think I worked there for about 7 years. And then, so from about 98, 99, I started working in the electrical industry, working on people's houses and stuff. I worked for the same guy, which is probably pretty rare. I still work for the same company, but I bought the company. So I started with him in 99. What's it, 2024 now? 25 years with that company. And about 10 years ago, I bought the company off him. I think from day one when I started working for him, he thought, this guy will probably buy the company off me, which wasn't something that he didn't want to happen. It was something he encouraged.
Okay.
Eventually, he sort of slowly let me run the business a little bit more, doing a bit more talking with customers and carrying the phone, organising things. And he would go away overseas and I would run the business while he was away, which I remember being extremely stressful, very stressful. And I kind of liked it. Started off at like 2 weeks, it moved up to 6 weeks and then a few months. I was always looking forward to giving that phone back because it would drive me crazy. And this is pre-emails and stuff as well. It was mostly just on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that I didn't realise I was learning, but as I was going through the years, I was learning how to run my own business. And then eventually he decided that he was happy to move away from being an electrician and let me purchase the business off him. And then looking back, it all worked out really well.
Yeah,
I remember not being super keen to do it because I knew what was involved. And to be honest, I had no idea what was involved. It was a lot more than I imagined.
Yeah, right.
But it's given me everything that I've got. So, and I do love being an electrician. When you start running your own business, you learn a lot more about that. Being an electrician is one thing, but running your own business is just a completely different monster.
Yeah, totally. Nice. Well done. What about key attributes? So we talked about you have to be good with customers. Is there any particular attributes that you feel people need to have?
Look, I think definitely that being good with customers, just with people in general, being able to explain yourself, having a good rapport with people is going to be good because a lot of times you'll be sent to someone's house to install a PowerPoint or fix this fault or whatever it might be. You can't just rock up and knock on the door and just go, You got to look people in the eye and talk to people and tell them what you're doing. They want to know that the person working in their house is trustworthy and a nice person and be keen to have you back. Yeah, I think that's important. And like I said before, a mind that likes to work things out is super important because even if it's not a fault or you've got to figure out how do I get a PowerPoint on that wall that person wants, trying to figure that out it can be complicated to do. And the more experience you have, you'll learn that. But it's good to have one of those minds where I'm a problem solver, I'm solutions based rather than, that can't be done. That's where you become a better electrician because you learn, you push yourself.
And earlier we're talking about spending hours trying to find the problem.
Yes.
And then going, okay, well, we're not going to be able to find the problem, but let's find another alternate solution.
Yes.
When do you know how to do that? Like, is that just time and experience?
Sometimes you feel like you're just not getting there, and also you'll weigh that up with how long you've spent at the person's house because it's their money and not everyone has this open bank account where they can just keep you there finding this problem. And you'll get to a point where like, do we really need to fix this? Can we make it safe and fix it an alternative way other than finding the fault? But sometimes you have to find the fault because there's no other way to fix it.
Right.
And other times you'll just go, look, I think we've spent enough time on that particular way. Why don't we just do this? You could stay there for days, never find it.
Yes.
And then how does that help anyone? You explain that to the customer.
And I think it is, but is a skill say no to customers? For example, they want the PowerPoint at one place, but you know there's no way that can be there.
You're right, yeah.
So how do you explain that, and do you get people angry at you because they really want certain things, certain places? How do you overcome that?
It is a hard one because over the years you learn about the structure of a house, let's say. Mostly it's houses that you're working on, and you know what cables you may or may not be able to run in a certain spot. A lot of customers don't understand that. They're just like, I want this PowerPoint here. I'm like, okay, well, that's very hard to get a cable there. I think people think sometimes you can just cut a hole in a wall and screw a PowerPoint on the wall. But your knowledge over the years of learning how to run a cable will sort of guide you as to whether that's going to be hard or easy or impossible. And you just need to be honest with the person and tell them. You don't want to tell them it's possible if in the back of your mind you're thinking, how the hell am I going to do that? So definitely experience is a big one. And just learning about different structures and different houses, and there's a lot to learn. That's why those 4 years are pretty critical, and having different areas that you work in is good.
And is that something that you would suggest? Obviously, it's a 4-year apprentice, and I guess it's critical that you're working for the right business or right company, have the right mentors around. And how would you identify who's a good mentor and who's not? I assume some people will go, I've done my first 2 years here, but I feel like I'm not learning as much more as I could if I went to somewhere else.
Talking to other apprentices at TAFE would probably be one of those big things, because you find, oh, what are you guys doing? And do you do this? Because you don't want to just go into a job and just, for the first 2 years, just fit off PowerPoints, because that's not teaching you anything. I think initially if you worked for a person that did new houses, that would be extremely good to learn. To do that for the rest of your career, I'm not sure about. It's not what I love doing, but you need to know how cables are run behind all these walls that we all see to appreciate how you can fix them or run new cables.
And how technical it is.
Yeah, how technical it is. What does the wall look like behind that gyprock, and how am I going to get that cable there? If you never knew that from the start, you'd never know how to do it. So learning how to be a domestic electrician is probably a great start, and then you sort of branch out from there if possible.
Great. And sorry.
I was just going to say, as you said, like, how do you know if you've got a good mentor or not? I think that would be tricky to know for a young kid, but I suppose you'll kind of know maybe in the back of your mind if you feel like you're doing different things all the time. If been sweeping the floor can happen because they might be not that busy or might have not enough faith in you to do things that are a bit more step up, then maybe if you're not progressing, you'll probably know, and maybe that's not the path for you, or that job particular is for you.
And I think you gave a really good tip, because you're doing an apprenticeship, you're going to TAFE, so you're going to be working with other people at the same level.
Yes.
And if they're experiencing more, that's sort of a bit of a warning to yourself. Oh, am I learning more than I should, or I'm not learning more than I should be? Yeah,
and speak to your employer and find out, can I do a bit more? Be proactive. Don't just stand there and watch. Get in there and do your best. So, can I have a go at that? That's what people want. They want someone that's driven, keen to learn. There's just so many different things you can learn being an electrician, and I really would recommend it to lots of young kids. And just to give it a go. If they didn't like it, then you might want to be a plumber, carpenter. It's all very similar, and you can always jump from one to the other if it's not working out for you.
And do you know if the time that you spent in your apprenticeship helps moving to another one? So if I was an electrician for a year and I go, oh, it's not for me, but I'd probably be a better plumber. Do you know if that first year helps me at any way?
So the education probably wouldn't. Maybe the structure would of starting the job on site at 7 o'clock. You'd learn a lot about site management and all that sort of stuff. It would help, but obviously it's a completely different ball game.
Okay.
But it's still a trade. There's a lot of similarities, and that's probably why we all get on so well.
Got ya. And talking about past and present, or even future, throughout your time, what's changed most in your industry, and how do you see the future look for electrician or the industry itself?
In general, I think it's always going to be something that's done by people. New products is probably the big ones, depending on what area that you work in. New products, say fans, or just looking up smoke detectors, light fittings, power points. But there's different options that you can buy and get. There's just change all the time. One of the big ones has been LED lighting, but that's something that's been around for quite a while now and is pretty much standard. I'll go to jobs that I went 2 years ago and put in downlights, and then we changed them all to LED. I think things just keep moving with technology, and also customers are becoming a bit more savvy about what they might want. And there's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and you sort of really need to be across a lot of different topics, because you might not be able to answer the question, or the person be like, oh, well, if you can't do that, I might get someone else. You do tend to learn that, especially if you're driven to just figure stuff out.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you keep up your knowledge? As you said, you're very curious, you always want to learn. So is that something that you just generally have?
For me, definitely. Like, someone might ask me about something that I've never heard of, and that won't turn me off. I'll try and learn about that myself, so that maybe I can offer them a solution. Or, you've got these wholesalers, they often have reps that work for them that know answers to a lot of these questions. So you kind of do have to investigate. You want the business and you want to keep pushing forward, or you might learn it off your workmates, or they might tell you a lot about looking at Instagram with different electricians having different ideas about how to do things. People put that up and you think, oh, wow, that's a really, really good idea. And how have I never come across that in my years of doing it? And
talking about change in future, there's this stigma, or probably not as much these days, but tradies are usually for males.
Yeah.
Has that changed over the time? Have you seen more females?
Not tons, I have to say. There's definitely been a few that I've come across, but it is still quite rare. And I'm not sure why that is, because I can't see why anyone couldn't do anything. But I think they're encouraging a lot more, but I wouldn't say I've seen it that much. It's rare, I suppose, if you see a female tradie on the job.
Okay. Are more people becoming tradies or electricians, or do you feel like there's a gap these days?
I feel like it's maybe the opposite.
Right.
I feel like there's a lot more people falling into that. I mean, you drive to work any morning and nearly every single car on the road's a tradie. It's held in very high regard.
Totally.
Especially if you're decent at what you do.
Do you reckon COVID's changed that? Because, in COVID, tradies were quite important.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, we were the ones that were still able to sort of work because people, and even then, like we say, people are working at home, so they're relying on their electricity or their NBN or whatever it might be. You realise your tradies are someone that you rely on.
That's cool. And what are your final tips if someone really wants to pursue a career in electrical industry or become an electrician?
We haven't touched on this. You do a lot of crawling under floors and crawling in roofs. So you have to be agile. Like, you get into some really weird positions, and I have had one time where I got claustrophobic under a floor, which was not nice. That's only once in my career. You can come across a lot of spiders. I've come across possums. I have never come across a snake yet, but I didn't ever want to come across a snake.
Yes.
That's the only thing that would worry me. But I suppose when you're an apprentice, you might get that job, go under the floor and run that cable from this power point to that power point and clip it under the beams.
Send the rookie down there.
Yeah, send the rookie down there. So knee pads, dust mask, dark spaces. Depends if that's something that I used to really enjoy that.
Exploring,
yeah, and it's very different under there. People look under there and go, oh, I wouldn't go under there. But that's something that you're probably definitely going to have to do as an apprentice.
So if you're scared of the dark and small places, you might reconsider?
It may not be the best for you.
Okay.
But, you might overcome that once you do it. You won't really know what it's like, because whoever crawls under a floor, and you've got to have strong core muscles to climbing in roofs, because if you go in the wrong direction and you put your foot down somewhere wrong or put your hand down somewhere wrong, you end up making a brand new manhole in someone's bathroom.
Has that happened to you by any chance?
I've cracked a couple of ceilings, but never put my hand through anything. I've come very close many times.
And again, that's just over time as you get to know how houses are structured.
Yeah, you know how to move up in the roof space and what you can put your foot on. But again, very dangerous as well. I mean, if you fall out of a roof or something happens to you up there while you are working, it could be quite hard to get to you. We touched on earlier about being dangerous, so that can't be understated. It really can't. Like, it is very, very dangerous. Like I said, you can't see electricity, and you need to learn early on how to test if something's off or on. So if I just take a PowerPoint off the wall and work on it, then that's live. That could kill me if I did the wrong thing. So you need to be taught how to isolate, they call it. So turn that circuit off that you're working and then test multiple times that's off, because that's just the one scary thing about being an electrician. And over time, you do become complacent. I've been shocked a few times in my life, and I would say every time it's because I've been lazy and I haven't done the right thing, because I'm sort of used to doing it, but the rules are you can't work live, you've got to turn everything off. And if you're working with someone else as well, that can be a problem. Like, did you turn it off? No, I thought you turned it off. You've got to have good communication between who you work with. That's a very, very important skill to have as being an electrician.
Right. And back to the word dangerous again, over your years of being an electrician and in the industry, is it safer than, say, 10 years ago? Is there a lot more standard rules that you have to follow when you're on site?
Yeah, I mean, it is safer. They've got safety switches now, which is going in everywhere, but you can still get shocked with them. I think that you just need to be aware of what's going on around you, because it might not just be electrical. You might climb a ladder. Getting used to working on a ladder, you might have your hands not holding onto the ladder because you're working above your head. If you move the wrong way, are you safe there? Because the higher you get, you fall. No good. So that's another dangerous aspect. Not to turn anyone off, just to think about it. You sort of see someone up a ladder that's been doing it for years, you're like, oh, that looks easy enough. If you're not used to climbing a ladder, different story. So these are the things that can happen. That's just workplace. That could happen to any tradesman. But there's a lot of information around safety these days. It's becoming more and more onus on the owner of the business to make sure that everyone's skilled up in their safety and they have a procedure to make sure the site's safe. It's good to know about that sort of stuff, because you can hurt yourself in a number of different ways. And one thing that I would say is important is be solutions based. So when they start the job, look to ask a lot of questions and try to be involved and try and learn as much as you can. And if I had someone working for me and they were sort of standing back and not too engaged, that probably wouldn't be someone that I'd be looking for. So as long as you're willing to get in there and try, employers love that. Just keep trying to learn and learn and learn. And next thing you know, learning just becomes second nature. You're not even trying to do it.
Thanks, Brett. That was great.
Thanks, mate.
I really enjoyed this episode with Brett. He shared further great tips for anyone looking to enter the trade. He highlighted the importance of finishing school for the maturity it brings. Brett also discussed the dangers of working with electricity and stressed the need to follow safety protocols to protect yourself, your team, and your customers. Another key point was the physical demands of the job. Being agile is important since you're often crawling under houses or balancing on ladders. Brett's insight should be valuable for anyone considering becoming an electrician. Thanks for listening, and if you haven't already, please subscribe so you can stay tuned for more episodes. And remember, make today a good news day.